This is a video that you'd never expect to see on my channel, but I just had to make it. I'm well aware this video will not do well at all, and that is totally fine, but I just have to get something off my chest, and that is Life is Strange Double Exposure. Now, this is not a sponsored video or anything of that sort, which is pretty evident judging by the title. You see, I'm a dumbass. Me being a big fan of the Life is Strange games, I decided I'd pay $30 extra on top of the base game price, so that's $80, just so I can play the first 2 chapters early. And I want my goddamn money back, because Life is Strange Double Exposure not only was a complete waste of my time, but also the worst game I played this year. Now, if you're not aware, the studio behind Double Exposure is Deck 9, and they are not the same studio behind the original Life is Strange game. You know, the game that everyone loved and you could see that there was real passion put in. That was made by dontnod. Now, I'm not saying Deck 9 has not made any good Life is Strange games, because I enjoyed True Colors quite a lot, but comparing Life is Strange 1 and even 2 to Double Exposure is night and day in terms of writing, passion, and handling of the franchise. The Metacritic scores for this game are well deserved. As of me making this video, it's sitting at a 74. Which is not a good score, by the way, and also a low 3.3 for user ratings, which once again is not good, and that seems about right. Maybe I would have lowered the rating from 74 to 70, because even 74 is too high. Anyway, let's talk about the game. It's very few positives and it's overpowering negatives, so without wasting any more of your time, let's get into it. Okay, so first off, let's get this out the way. I know I was a total dumbass here, dropping an extra $30 just for 2 weeks of early access with only the first 2 chapters. Yeah, not the smartest choice I've ever made, but you see, they got me. It's called FOMO, also known as fear of missing out, and I thought if I didn't pay the extra $30 and get it 2 weeks early, then I'd see spoilers galore, and I'd feel like I'm missing out while everyone is having quote unquote fun. Now I regret it, but hey, lesson learned. Don't go tossing away money at early access pre-orders unless you're really set financially. The way Square Enix handled the marketing and pricing on this one, honestly, it's borderline criminal, and they should be called out more for it. We all tore into Ubisoft over how they priced Assassin's Creed Shadows Gold Edition before the delay, but trust me, this is 10 times worse. At least the Gold Edition of Shadows promised 2 big expansions and extras, whereas this Double Exposure Deluxe Edition is just the first 2 chapters, which are very short, by the way. Now, getting into the plot and narrative of the game itself. You see, when I started Life is Strange Double Exposure, it felt like a journey back to the emotional highs and the pretty intense choices that the series is known for. But by the end of the game, I was left more thinking, I want my money back than fulfilled. I had some very high hopes for this continuation of Max Caulfield's story, but those hopes very quickly faded as the plot spiraled into a tangle of wasted potential, underwhelming subplots, and some pretty poor handled characters. Now, don't get me wrong, the setup for the story seemed like it was incredible. I mean, think about it. It's a murder mystery with alternative timelines. It sounds great. Max is back at it with new powers, jumping timelines to solve a murder mystery at Caledon University. But what I managed to take away from playing the entire game was a half-baked story, with one of, if not the worst ending to any game I've played in a while. From the start, the mystery of who shot Max's friend Safi should have been the driving force, but the plot drifts all over the place, losing its focus on the murder mystery altogether as it stumbles through the episodes past episode 2, which of course was the episodes not featured in the early access. Surprise, surprise. And don't even get me started on the way Chloe Price was handled in this game. That aspect right there feels like a slap in the face to fans who played the franchise since the start. Instead of diving into that unresolved trauma and the connection between Max and Chloe, the game practically erases Chloe from Max's life. Yes, we had some text messages shown and some drawings, but they don't cut it when many of us invested so much time into their relationship from the first game. With Double Exposure, the game does give you romance options, and they are so poorly fleshed out that this game feels like a spin-off. Another letdown is the game's approach to player choice. Life is Strange has always been about making tough, impactful decisions, but here the choices felt so pointless. The original game made every choice an intense and meaningful decision that left lasting moments, but in Double Exposure, the most impactful choice is probably deciding what Max will wear from her wardrobe. Like, goddamn. It's like the stakes are non-existent, and you're just watching the story unfold instead of being a part of it. Which reminds me, post chapter 2 or maybe chapter 3, honestly felt like the game was 90% dialogue and cutscenes and 10% of actual gameplay. I was falling asleep listening to most of the dialogue as well because it seemed so lifeless. Like, I don't care about Loretta's story or Vin and the other guy's relationship, and that's the game to blame because they did not write these characters well at all. And speaking of characters, let's talk about them because they were hit and miss. Some seemed pretty good and had potential, and some I just did not give the slightest shit about. Let's start with Max herself. Now Max was Max. She was amazing. Hannah Tell, as always, did a great job with her portrayal. Anyone playing the game could tell that it was the usual Max we know and love, even with the plot wobbling all over the place. Max holds it together. Her thoughtful, introspective vibe and flashes of that quiet resilience that we know shine through. This time around, she's older, carrying all the emotional baggage from Arcadia Bay, and you can feel it. The writers didn't skimp on her character growth either. She's still Max, but wiser, more cautious, and even if her choices don't always make the most sense thanks to the shit writing, I will say if you care about only Max in the Life is Strange games, then that's a pretty good reason to stick around because her character is solid. Another character that I thought was pretty good was Moses. Well, I say good, but the writing of his character after chapter 3 felt so strange. It's almost like Deck 9 just said, fuck it. Let's just randomly neglect him for some reason. While everyone else in the game is off being overly cringe or trying way too hard to be deep, Moses is just solid. He's this calm, no-nonsense astronomer who does not feel the need to over-explain or throw in unnecessary jokes. If anything, it's kind of a breath of fresh air amidst all the forced drama and inconsistent characters. Moses to me was the kind of character that made me want to pay attention to his dialogue, even when the rest of the story is falling apart. However, as I said, post chapter 3, the game just neglects any type of subplot with him, and then you slowly start to forget that he even existed. Another character similar to Moses in terms of how they are handled is Amanda. Amanda is barely fleshed out, popping up here and there, with quite literal minimal impact on the story. In fact, I don't even think she affects the story at all. She's a love interest for Max, but that whole side of the game doesn't progress anywhere at all. They kissed once at the start, I think, but apart from that, the writing is all, I don't know if I can do this, Max, blah blah. Give me time to think about things, Max, blah blah, and that's it. They don't explore it any further. And then there is Vin. Oh boy, now Vin is a character that I couldn't figure out what he's supposed to be. A friend? A love interest? A plot device? The writers didn't seem to know either, and their half-hearted attempt at character complexity comes off as confusing rather than compelling. There are awkward scenes with Vin that feel so forced, such as the random flirting that happens which was so bizarre. Which reminds me, Max in this game is a goddamn freak. I'm not sure why the writers made her so goddamn horny, because she says some random one-liner horny ass things. But yeah, aside from Max being a freak, Vin is a character with no real clarity on his motives or his bond with Max. It's just hard to care about him. He's one of those characters like in Life is Strange 1. Remember Alyssa, the fat girl with pink hair? Vince to me is on that level of irrelevant. And then there's Safi, and my god, what a terrible character. She is without a doubt one of the most frustrating characters in all of Life is Strange. The whole revenge thing she's got going on is one long streak of selfish, destructive actions that seem justified only in her mind. She's a character that Deck 9 just put into the game to ruin relationships, like for example tearing Lucas away from his son and even framing Gwen for drug dealing, all because she feels guilty for not standing up for her dead friend. Instead of remorse or reflection, she goes full steam ahead with a plan that's less about justice and more about making everyone else as miserable as she is. And then it gets worse. At one point, she straight up shoots her mother, with barely a hint of any regret or sadness, leaving Max, who is of course our saving grace, to clean up her mess by scrambling to fix the timelines. Safi is the embodiment of Deck 9, and her complete disregard for the fallout of her actions could have made her an interesting antagonist, if the game had treated her as a proper villain. In fact, you know who should have been the main villain, or at least somebody with evil intentions? That goddamn policeman Vince Alderman. He seemed truly corrupt and evil for the sake of it, and you could tell that he had potential to be somebody special in the game. But what do Deck 9 do? Well, they killed him off in the most stupid way possible. In fact, I can't even describe how he died, but just know he died. Now let's talk a little bit about the setting of the game, and that is Caledon University. Yes, a university, not a village, a town or a city like we've seen in every other game, but a very small university that lacks in anything. The game keeps saying how the storm will hit the town, but where the fuck is the town? And why do they never show it? Caledon University is a place where I couldn't care less what happens to it. It's not like Arcadia Bay, where you knew so many people in that amazing town, whether it's the people in the diner, Frank and his RV, the junkyard, the big forest or the high school. Arcadia Bay is a town that feels like a town you care about. But Caledon University? I could not give two shits if that town got nuked by North Korea. There was nothing appealing about it besides, oh look, it's snowing, and snow is cool, right? But it's not all doom and gloom. The graphics of the game is incredible, and it's a very clear step up from anything we've seen in the Life is Strange games. The facial expressions on each character is top notch, and a lot of care went into the mocap, which is very evident. The art style from previous games is gone, and it's replaced with something else that I just can't put my finger on. The performance of the game is complete ass. They switched to Unreal Engine 5, which I hate in any game because it's so unoptimized. And I played it on a 7900 XT, which is a pretty high-end card. There are no upscaling options, so you are guaranteed bad performance no matter the GPU you use. Some areas like in Max's small house or in the offices of Gwen and Lucas have good performance because it's a small compact area. But places like the outside of the university or inside where you can see everybody, that's when the performance goes from good to bad. But yeah, overall, visually the game is a step up, but performance is a big fat downgrade. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the most underwhelming game of 2024. I know this is a completely different video, but having just finished the game, I needed to make this video ASAP, even if like 500 people saw it. That could be 500 less people I've convinced to buy the game. But then again, I've spoiled a lot in this video. But who cares? Just know it's not a game I recommend. Anyway, I'll be posting my usual Assassin's Creed content soon, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, shout out to the members of my Patreon, and I will see you in the next one.